Shalom, my friends. Have you ever noticed that the people who stress the most about money are the ones who struggle with it the most? Here's what nobody tells you about financial order. Fighting against it destroys it, but aligning with it creates prosperity. Today, I'm going to show you how ancient Jewish principles can transform your relationship with money from chaos to clarity, from disorganization to divine order, and from anxiety to absolute peace. And the best part? You don't need to be religious to use this. You just need to be ready to think differently. I'm Rabbi Shimon, the architect of Torah life, and before you click away thinking this is another religious lecture, let me be crystal clear about something. Torah isn't religion. Torah is a life design operating system that's been solving human chaos for over 3,000 years. Think of it as the ultimate psychological framework aged in ancient wisdom. When you understand how to read it, Torah becomes a blueprint for building a life that actually works. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Rabbi, I barely have enough money to pay my bills. How is ancient wisdom going to help me? Others might be wondering if this applies to them because they're not Jewish. Let me address both concerns right now. First, these principles work regardless of your current financial situation because they're based on universal laws of human behavior and how resources naturally move when aligned with purpose. Second, wisdom has no religion. Truth is truth whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or completely secular. Your financial disorganization isn't a money problem, it's an alignment problem. And once you understand this, everything changes. Here's the revelation that changes everything about financial organization. In Torah, there's this concept called tohu vavohu, which describes the state of chaos before creation, formless, void, disorganized. This isn't just a poetic description of the universe before God brought order. It's a precise description of what happens in your financial life when divine principles are absent. Your bank account becomes tohu vavohu. Your budget becomes formless. Your financial future becomes void of clarity. Think about your financial life right now. Bills scattered everywhere, receipts you can't find, accounts you haven't checked in months, investments you don't understand, debts you're avoiding looking at. This isn't laziness. This isn't lack of intelligence. This is what happens when the natural order that money requires is violated. Money, like everything else in creation, follows specific laws. When you work with these laws, you get order. When you work against them, you get chaos. And chaos always costs you more than order ever could. The Torah teaches us that before God created the world, there was chaos. But God didn't destroy the chaos. He organized it. He separated light from darkness, waters from dry land, day from night. He created boundaries, categories, systems. He brought order. And this is the exact same process you need to apply to your finances. You don't need to destroy what you have. You need to organize it according to divine principles. You need to create the same kind of order in your money that God created in the universe. Because just as the universe cannot function in chaos, neither can your financial life. The first Jewish principle that transforms financial disorganization is called Havdalah, which means separation or distinction. Every week, Jews perform a ceremony called Havdalah to separate the sacred Sabbath from the regular week. But this isn't just a religious ritual. This is a fundamental principle of how order works in the universe. Everything that functions properly has clear separations. Your body separates blood from waste. Your brain separates memories from current thoughts. Nature separates seasons, day from night, land from sea. Your finances desperately need the same principle of separation. Right now, everything is probably mixed together. Personal expenses blend with business expenses. Money for bills mixes with money for fun. Savings that should be protected get spent on emergencies. Money for your future gets used for your present. This mixing creates the financial equivalent of blood mixing with waste in your body. It creates disease. When you don't separate your money into clear categories with clear purposes, every dollar becomes negotiable, every expense becomes justified, every boundary becomes flexible, and eventually you have no idea where anything goes or why you never have enough. The Torah solution is radical separation. Create accounts that never touch each other. Money for living expenses stays separate from money for growth. Money for giving stays separate from money for receiving. Money for today stays separate from money for tomorrow. This isn't about restriction. This is about protection. When you separate your money according to purpose, each category can grow according to its nature without being consumed by another category's needs. Just as God separated light from darkness so both could fulfill their purpose, you must separate your money categories so each can fulfill its purpose. This single principle, properly applied, can transform financial chaos into financial peace within 30 days. The second transformative principle is Sefirah, which means counting. In Jewish tradition, there's a practice of counting each day for 49 days between Passover and Shavuot. Each day is counted, acknowledged, made significant. This isn't obsessive accounting. This is sacred awareness. What you count, you value. What you value, you protect. What you protect, you grow. This is why wealthy people count their money obsessively, while broke people avoid looking at their accounts. It's not that counting makes you greedy, it's that counting makes you conscious. Most people live in financial unconsciousness. They don't know exactly how much they make. They don't know exactly how much they spend. They don't know how much they owe or how much they own. They operate on feelings and estimates and hopes. This is like trying to build a building without measurements. Disaster is inevitable. The Torah teaches that God counts everything. He counts the stars, names them, knows each one. He counts the hairs on your head. He counts your days. Not because he's obsessive, but because counting is how you maintain order in a system. When you stop counting, the system drifts into chaos. Here's what happens when you apply Sefirah to your finances. Every dollar gets counted. Every expense gets recorded. Every debt gets tracked. Every asset gets acknowledged. You create a daily practice of financial awareness that transforms your relationship with money from unconscious to conscious, from reactive to proactive, from chaotic to ordered. This doesn't mean you become obsessed with money. It means you become conscious of money. And consciousness is the foundation of all transformation. Start today. Count what you have. Count what you owe. Count what you spend. Count what you save. Make each dollar significant by acknowledging its existence and its purpose. This practice alone will reveal patterns you never saw before, opportunities you never noticed, and leaks you never knew existed. Counting isn't about control, it's about consciousness, and consciousness is where prosperity begins. The third principle that transforms disorganization into order is ma'aser, the practice of tithing, giving away 10% of your income. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rabbi, I can't afford to give away 10%. I can barely pay my bills. But here's what you don't understand. Tithing isn't about what you can afford. Tithing is about breaking the psychology of scarcity that keeps your finances disorganized. When you're in scarcity mode, you hoard everything, organize nothing, and trust no system. Tithing forces you to trust that flow creates more than hoarding ever could. In Torah, ma'aser is commanded not as charity, but as a spiritual technology for creating abundance. When you give away the first 10%, you're declaring to yourself and to the universe that you operate from abundance, not scarcity. You're training your brain to see money as energy that flows through you, not resources that must be protected from flow. This psychological shift is more valuable than the money you give away, because when you operate from abundance, you make completely different decisions. You invest instead of hoard. You create instead of protect. You grow instead of shrink. Your financial organization naturally improves because abundance creates order while scarcity creates chaos. But here's the key that most people miss. Tithing only works when it's systematic, not random. You can't give sporadically when you feel generous and expect transformation. You must give consistently from every income, before anything else. This forces you to organize your finances because you can't give 10% if you don't know what 100% is. You must count your income. You must plan your expenses. You must create order in your financial system. The act of tithing systematically forces financial organization into existence. Start this week. Calculate exactly what you make. Set aside exactly 10%. Give it away before you pay bills, before you buy groceries, before anything else. Watch what happens, not just to your finances, but to your entire psychology around money. The organization you seek doesn't come from more money. It comes from right relationship with the money you already have. The fifth and most counterintuitive principle for transforming financial chaos is Shabbat, the practice of complete rest 1 day per week. In our hustle culture, this sounds insane. Rabbi, I need to work more to fix my finances, not less. But here's what Torah wisdom understands that modern culture doesn't. Constant motion without rest creates exhaustion, not excellence. Perpetual hustle without pause creates burnout, not breakthrough. And exhaustion always leads to disorganization because tired minds cannot create or maintain order. The Torah commands Shabbat not as optional spiritual luxury, but as mandatory operational requirement. God himself rested on the seventh day, not because he was tired, but to establish the principle that rest is essential to sustainable creation. When you never stop, you never reflect. When you never reflect, you never learn. When you never learn, you keep repeating the same financial mistakes in different forms. Your financial disorganization persists because you're too busy being busy to stop and organize. You're so focused on making money that you have no time to understand money. You're working so hard that you never work smart. Here's how Shabbat transforms financial chaos. 1 day a week, you completely stop all financial activity. No spending, no earning, no checking accounts, no financial stress. You create a weekly reset that allows your nervous system to discharge financial anxiety and your mind to gain perspective on your financial patterns. During this rest, insights emerge that never come during hustle. You see patterns you were too busy to notice. You gain clarity you were too stressed to access. You remember priorities you were too distracted to honor. Then, when you return to your financial life, you return with fresh energy, clear vision, and renewed commitment to order. The organization happens not during the rest, but because of the rest. Stop treating your finances like an emergency that requires constant attention. Start treating them like a garden that requires consistent care and strategic rest. Take 1 day completely off from financial stress. Watch how this weekly reset creates the mental space necessary for lasting financial organization. The breakthrough you're seeking won't come from more hustle. It will come from strategic rest that creates space for divine order to emerge. Here's what I need you to understand. These aren't religious rules for religious people. These are universal principles embedded in the fabric of creation that work whether you believe in them or not. Separation, counting, tithing, planning, and rest aren't Jewish concepts. They're life concepts that Jews have preserved and practiced for thousands of years. And they work. They work for creating order in chaos. They work for transforming disorganization into prosperity. They work for building a financial life that supports your highest purpose instead of sabotaging it constantly. Your financial disorganization isn't permanent. It's not a character flaw. It's not a destiny you must accept. It's simply the natural result of operating outside the principles that create and maintain order. The moment you begin applying these Torah principles, the moment you separate your money, count your resources, tithe systematically, plan with purpose, and rest strategically, everything begins to shift, not overnight, not magically, but systematically, progressively, inevitably. Order emerges from chaos the same way it emerged at creation, through the application of divine principles to formless matter. So here's your challenge this week. Choose one principle, not all 5, just one. Maybe it's creating clear separation in your accounts. Maybe it's starting to count everything. Maybe it's beginning to tithe. Maybe it's creating a financial plan. Maybe it's taking 1 full day off from financial stress. Choose one. Commit completely. Implement thoroughly. Watch what happens. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction. Shalom, my friends. Now let's build the financial life that God designed for you, one divine principle at a time. The transformation begins today with what you have, where you are, exactly as things are now.